Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new edition of the Daily Debate. In tonight's show, we're going to be focusing on Egypt's Sustainable Development Goals for 2030. Now, this is in light of Egypt actually launching the second phase of the National Initiative for Green Smart Projects in governorates all over Egypt. Also, Egypt is aiming to increase the allocated budget to 50% by the fiscal year 2024-2025. We're going to be focusing on this file tonight. But before we start doing that, let's check out some of the main stories making the news today. And we'll start off with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, who directed today to resume implementing the strategy for the development of the Suez Canal, its navigational course and all its facilities and infrastructure. The President gave his instructions during his meeting with Prime Minister Mostafa, Chairman of the Suez Canal Authority, Lieutenant General Osama Rabia, and the Chairman of the Board of Directors of the Southern Red Sea Arsenal Company. The strategy aims at preserving the outstanding performance, which is internationally recognized for efficiency and unique status in global navigation trade. Presidential spokesman Ahmed Fahmy said President el-Sisi reviewed a statement of the navigation traffic in the Suez Canal during the first quarter of 2023. The statement showed an increase in the number of ships that passed through the canal by about 20% compared to the same period last year, and an increase in revenues to record about $2.3 billion, an increase of about 35%. The canal also recorded the highest daily transit rate in its history on March 13th, with 107 ships with a tonnage of 6.3 million tons. Rabia presented the axes of projects for developing the navigational course of the Suez Canal, in addition to authorities' efforts to modernize its marine fleet, including tugs and dredgers, in light of the pivotal role in securing the navigational course and assisting ships transiting the canal. Also, Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry has praised the ties between Cairo and Athens at all levels. Now, speaking at a joint press conference with the Greek Foreign Minister in Athens, the top diplomat reiterated that both sides are keen to implement joint projects. Shoukry noted that Cairo appreciates Greece's role in boosting Egypt within the EU mechanisms. He said his consultations with the Greek Foreign Minister touched on the Palestinian issue and regional developments. For his part, the Greek Foreign Minister expressed appreciation for ties with Cairo. During his visit, Shoukry will meet with the CEO of the Greek Koplouzos electricity company group giant to review the progress in the implementation of the electricity interconnection project between Egypt and Greece. His visit to the Greek capital aims to boost bilateral relations and hold consultations on regional and international developments. Now, those were a couple of the main stories making the news today, but now turning and focusing our attention on tonight's topic in hand. Now, Egypt has launched the second phase of the National Initiative for Green Smart Projects in governorates across Egypt by the end of May this year. Let's check out this report and we'll be right back.
The Ministry of Communications and Information Technology and the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development announced the launch of the second round of the National Initiative for Green Smart Projects in the Governorates of Egypt. Submissions will continue till the end of May 2023. Participation in the National Initiative for Green Smart Projects is open to all groups of society, especially women, reflecting the country's efforts to empower women as development partners in different sectors. The initiative, part of the national efforts to achieve nationwide sustainable development, aims to raise awareness of climate change issues and challenges in all governorates of Egypt and highlight the role of the private sector and civil society in achieving sustainable development. Objectives of the initiative include focusing on implementation and application, addressing environmental dimension and climate change, and fulfilling sustainable development goals and digital transformation through impactful projects. This in addition to creating a governor-level map for green smart projects, helping connect projects with national and international funding agencies and investors. Earlier, round one was a success and received applications of 6,200 projects, and after evaluation, 162 projects were selected, 6 from each governorate. After further evaluation and assessments, the best 18 projects were announced and were presented at the UN Climate Change Conference COP27. The initiative targets green smart projects in 6 categories, namely large projects, medium-sized projects, small-scale domestic projects, projects by startups, not-for-profit community activities, and gender-related climate change and sustainability-focused projects. Participation is open to companies, individuals, and public, as well as private agencies.
لكل الناس في دايما حلم تحلم بيه، وانا كان حلمي على قدي ونفسي اعيش، ولما رميت عليك حملي شاركتني فيه، ايدك في ايديا من الاول ما بتسيبنيش. يلا يلا نكمل سكه مشيناها، يلا نفرح سوا باللي احنا حققناه، يلا هانت خلاص وانا وانت قلناه، احنا نقدر وده اللي انا وانت اثبتناه، وخلاص فاضل تكه 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 على اخر السكه، لسه تكه كان ناس كتير شكه 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 وشوفوا رحنا لفين، وخلاص فاضل تكه 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 على اخر السكه، لسه تكه كان ناس كتير شكه 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 وشوفوا رحنا لفين. وخلاص فاضل تكه 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 على اخر السكه، لسه تكه خطوه جابت خطوه 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 وشوفوا رحنا لفين.
يلا مصريين همتكم، ده الحلم خلاص فاضل عليه تكة.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we're joined here tonight in the studio by Engineer Mostafa Naggari, the Deputy Chairman of the Egyptian Exporters Association and also the Chairman of the Agricultural and Irrigation Committee in the Egyptian Businessmen Association. Engineer Naggari, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Hani, for inviting me.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, before we start talking about the details regarding the national initiative for green smart projects and development across all governorates. Now, Egypt has its own vision to achieve sustainable development by 2030. We've been talking about it for a while now, and we understand that it really deals with all different sectors of the industries and the Egyptian way of life and the Egyptian economy. But the term of localizing sustainable development, we understand localizing industries in different areas and everything, but can you please shed light on the comprehension of this definition, localizing sustainable development?
Thank you. First of all, of course, I have to greet all Muslims according to Ramadan, and greet as well our brothers, Christian brothers, for the holy week of celebrations. this is we have to start with,
Yes,
okay, to just express our feeling nowadays as the Egyptians that both celebrations are coming for the both parties of the society, of the Egyptian society. Just let me tell you something about delocalizing the industries in Egypt. Of course, this took place since maybe 6 or 7 years, and it was initiative held by the Egyptian Industrial Authority, and it took some discussions with the government about how we can go and localize industries and how can we protect this sort of industries to try to improve the productivity. On the other side, you cannot just stop importing, because importing, it doesn't mean only machinery, it means the technology as well. And we have to say that we are living in a world which is moving very fast, with image of facilitating movement and the transport and the trade, even in the commodities, in the movement of currencies, of movement of people. So we are in a world which you cannot define yourself and be in a side. Yes. So, but at the end, we have challenges and we have chances as well. And this is what we are focusing, and this is what the initiative and the strategy always is based on. I would like, of course, to talk today about the mega projects of the agriculture, because it's really having a very important, at this time we have importance for the food. We have seen the effect of the Russian war to Ukraine, and we have seen the sanctions which have affected at the end increase of the prices, barriers in the global supply chains all over the world, and really is affecting the inflation and the devaluation at the end of the Egyptian currency, which everybody is feeling as a family. So I would like to talk about the the projects which is underway now in Egypt. Okay, so we have the New Delta project, mega project. It's going for reclamation of 2.2 million acres. We have Toshka Al-Khair, which is totally different than the old Toshka project, and it is targeting 1 million acre. And we have Reef Al-Masri, which also is targeting 1.5 million acre. We have East Wainat, Shar Wainat is targeting about 250,000 acre. And we have the protected global project, the protected plantation, which is called the greenhouses, is about 100,000 acres of protected plantations. And then we have the Upper Egypt and all the governorates associations which is trying to improve the agriculture sector. Yes. And if we talk about the agriculture sectors in general, because it's connected with several activities connected to the agriculture, so we have to say that there is always two influences is affected by the agriculture. One is social influence, and the other one is economical influence. So at the end, Egypt is trying to increase the area planted, is trying to expand in the desert to try to achieve sustainable development, if we can say, and to try to close the gap of the demand of the food. Because we have mentioned before that by 2050, the global population will be 9 billion. And Egypt is not far away. We will be about 1.60 to 65 million inhabitants. And in general, by calculations, the whole world have to increase their productivity of food 80% from today. You have to focus on the climate change barriers, and you have to work hard. You have water challenges, you have technology transformers from everywhere, and we have to be always in the core because we are very well located at the time, and the whole trade is moving at the end to the short distance market supply and demand. Always. If we see that even in industry, you see that the US and the Europeans are moving their investments from the Far East to nearby areas. According to what happened in the last 3-4 years only, the thoughts are changing a lot, and we have to benefit from that.
Yes. Well, sir, you've mentioned the agricultural and irrigation projects that should achieve sustainable development, and you've mentioned a lot of these mega projects such as the New Delta and Toshka al-Khair and many others. Now, we are entering an age, as you've mentioned, that is really very progressive technologically, and everything is changing. Egypt has always been known as an agricultural country. Now, how far are we adapting our agricultural and irrigation methods into the new age, applying this new technology as opposed to the traditional ways that we've been used to for decades? Because now we're embarking on, you've mentioned, millions of acres, be it at the North or Upper Egypt. So are we also not just working on the infrastructure, but also working on the technological advancement, the artificial intelligence, the digitalization of the whole process, really educating the Egyptian farmers as well, who've been used to traditional methods for decades?
Let me tell you that the doors are open between the government and the privates, and there is always a lot of discussions because the privates are, as we say, the mirror for each government to tell them what is going on and what is the demand. Okay. So according to that, Egypt have signed an agreement which is called the UPOV agreement. UPOV is abbreviation for the Union of the Producers of Varieties. So there is royalty for that, and Egypt had to sign this agreement. So the producers of the specific varieties, which you can talk a lot about it, it will give a higher productivity, it will resist the climate changes, it will give a longer shelf life, a lot, okay? So Egypt have signed that. But if we talk about these projects, okay, any investor needs, as we say, easy births in the investment. All the countries are attracting you to come and to try to invest, but there is also easy departure. And this is one of the topics which always we talk with the government about how to be attractive to attract the investor, both investors, local and the foreign. And that's why there is, I can say that the doors are always open. We always point for them that we need clear contracts when we apply for a land in New Delta or in Toshka al-Khair. We always need a clear contracts to prove for our partners in the global, in Europe, okay, or even for these guys who are going to offer me their seeds or to have me as an agent for them. They have obligations and they need a certain type of agent for them. So we should be always ready and to understand what is the demand of the market and what is the demand of the other parties. So this is one issue. We are always in discussion with that. We are also in discussion about some laws which are affecting agriculture indirectly, but it is harming agriculture. One of these laws is the mining and the stones law. Okay, we are all very, of course, caring about our stones and about the the mines and everything. But in some of the agri lands, there is some stones just on the surface of the soil. And you have to get out these stones and you have to replace it with soil, so you have the depths, the needed depths for the plant. You have to pay a lot of money according to this law. So there should be exemption for the agriculture.
Yes.
Last week there was a law for the meteorology law, okay, which is everybody have to pay money and fees if you are going to have a station, satellite or sensors, okay? Okay, this is good because this is a social and national security for the country, but for the agriculture, it should be exempted because nowadays the whole world is moving for the smart farming, which we know in Egypt that there is no any farming assistant guidance to the farmers since many years. الإرشاد الزراعي. We lost it. And there is no any ways to have it again because the technology now is going through the satellite, through the sensors, and this is helping whom? It's not helping the big farmers, it's helping the small farmers because the target is to help the small to work together in a cluster so you can increase their competitiveness because this is the what is going on everywhere. Everywhere. Of course, there is a father who is dying and they spread the land to 2 and then 2 to 4. But at the end, they don't separate the land. They work as one unit, as a big unit. So the competitiveness is higher and you can implement all your programs of agri-guidance and to reduce the inputs and to try to reduce the water consumption and to increase the productivity with the good quality. So you have to work in a technology and in a way how the world are moving. And this is what is the private is saying and telling to the government.
Engineer Naggari, now you've led me into this second phase now of the initiative, the national initiatives for smart and green projects across the governorates. And if we are talking with a main focus on agriculture and irrigation, now what is the criteria of these initiatives? I mean, all governorates will submit their own ideas, different sort of companies or small investors or entrepreneurs or startups. Now you've mentioned that for the development of smart agriculture, it also needs a lot of money and a lot of exemptions of money that needs to be paid as well. So are the main targets the small startups, the small farmers, the small investors, or do you also still need the big investors, the big companies, and maybe even foreign ones? Or is it divided sometimes with national mega projects such as the New Delta or Toshkar Khair? You would need the bigger sort of investors, and for other agricultural lands across different governorates you would focus more on small and entrepreneur farmers, for instance.
Okay. Let me tell you that the mega power of Egypt is the SMEs, okay, and they are not in the program. And this one, this was a long talks with several ministries of finance, okay, that you are always implementing taxes to the people who are in the view, the companies, the big companies, but the SMEs is huge and they are in the market, they are working, but they are not in the program. And we are always trying to attract these people to be as a clusters, in a clusters. So at the end they will increase the productivity, they will pay also taxes at the end. So the power of, if we, let us say, go in one of the exhibition, the agri exhibitions in Europe, in Germany, Fruit Logistica, or you go to Spain, Fruit Attraction, they are very big exhibitions. Many countries are participating. You will see that 50% of the exhibitors are cooperatives, not companies. And this is also what the private is saying to the government. We are trying to attract the small farmers to work together. And I can tell that the government is helping in that, is helping. Although the law of cooperatives, قانون التعاونيات, is not that attractive, but we are trying to move in different ways of forming companies between the small farmers. So at the end, they follow a system in the agriculture, and at the end you can export their products. And that's why when I talked about the meteorology law, it is against that, because we are trying to attract the farmers by giving them agro guidance, and try at the end put them in a company or in a cluster or a cooperative, whatever it is said, what is the best for them, and to try to produce higher value products for export or either for the local market. So at the end there is always talks between the privates and the governments, and the government is listening. I can tell that they are not, but at the end sometimes we see something which is not positive we have, and this happens everywhere. What we are saying in Egypt is not odd. No, they are helping. We are always in discussion. We thank them that they are always trying to modify and trying to come to the best scenario to deal for the local and for the foreign investors. If we talk about the foreign investors, they have two problems for the last 20 years. The devaluation of the Egyptian pound, okay, because some of them have pumped, let us say, millions of dollars. And at the end they want to get back this million with the profit. But when they evaluate their land, when they evaluate, they pay taxes about 22% because they have to establish Egyptian company. So at the end you have to follow the law. And they have to pay 22% taxes. So paying 22% taxes, the valuation of the Egyptian pound, at the end when he will collect the dollar, it will be less. I hope, of course, everybody hope. We want our currency to be more strength, to be stabilized. At the end, this will help to attract more investors in the agriculture, because it's already very attractive sector, very attractive sector. And if we talk about connected activities to the agriculture, you cannot count. It is, I mean, even if you talk about the carbon emission and the reduction of the carbon emission, and the agriculture is one of the major activities which produce carbon. So at the end you have to work in that, and this is a business. Okay, if you want to for the renewable energy, it's a business. If you want to for trying to modify the irrigation streams and canals and drains, there is a cladding program to cover all sides of canals and drains. This is a huge business. Okay, so at the end, and then the food industry, the storing, the logistics, the transport, the cold storing, the packing stations, the cartons, the packing units. It's a huge industry which is connected at the end to the farmer.
Engineer Naggari, now you are the chairman of the Agricultural and Irrigation Committee for the Egyptian Businessmen Association and deputy chairman for the Egyptian Exporters Association. So the president already set a certain target of exporting about $100 billion, and at the same time you're talking about the development of the agricultural and irrigation sector here in Egypt. And you've mentioned a very important conflict, which is the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, which is affecting energy and food supplies all over the globe. Now, we are trying to aim to achieve self-sufficiency in terms of food and agricultural products. And you also mentioned that farmers also want to export.
Of course.
So how do we reach that sort of level in such a huge global food crisis to achieve our own self-sufficiency in our food and agricultural products, and at the same time try to have more of reserves to export in such a critical time?
Let me tell you that there is not one country in the whole world that can produce 100% their food.
Yes.
They export, they import, and this is the nature of the world, okay? And Egypt is increasing their exports, okay? We have in your report, you have mentioned that Egypt, 2022, we have achieved total exports of 6.3 million tons,
Yes.
and with a revenue of $3.3 billion. Okay, by simple equation, if you divide, so at the end, each exported ton have an average of $500 to $510, and this is very low. Of course, thanks to the Egyptian citrus, thanks to the Egyptian potatoes, thanks to the Egyptian onion. They are the major three big exported items, but they are cheap items, okay? They are cheap items. So if we just look for this equation, so we see if that we could increase the average revenue of each exported ton from $500 to $600 or to $700, and this is only one sector, is agriculture, and you have other 12 sectors, so easily you can achieve the $100 billion. Okay, so it is, each sector is working for the strategy which was implemented or stated by His Excellency Fattah Sisi, and we put the program for that. And this is one of my roles in the Egyptian Business Association, or in Expolin, in the Egyptian Exporter Association. We have signed protocols either with exhibitions. We have exhibition in May in Italy. We convinced the Italian party to waive the air tickets and the accommodation for all the Egyptian exhibitors. And at the end, 22 companies are going to participate this time, which is really 3 or 4 times what we used to have before. So this is our role, to try to promote, to help exporters. On the other side, we have signed a protocol also through Expolin with one of the mega companies in Europe for the smart data services by using the satellites and the sensors for the small farmers. So we are always focusing on what really the country needs, what is the farmer needs. He needs finance. We have also a protocol with the Agri Bank of Egypt to finance the crops by very low interest rate. Okay, and we are going also to add activities for the farmer to be financed through the bank. So we are always trying to, to put all in the same table. The farmer needs finance, need guidance, need to sell his product with higher value.
Yes.
We are doing
Yes.
the 3 items for him.
Well, do you feel that, if we are exerting our efforts to get foreign investors here in Egypt in the field of agriculture and irrigation, but what about the foreign importers that we actually send our exhibitors abroad? Because for the past year, as soon as the Russian-Ukrainian conflict erupted, foreign investors were quite cautious about saving their money, saving for the energy and everything, and they were reluctant to invest and maybe import. Now the conflict is in its 2nd year. Do you feel that they're now maybe getting used to the idea that maybe this conflict will stay for a while, and they are more willing to import more from Egypt and other countries, or maybe try and venture into investing in Egypt, for instance?
We have a very good chance, really, if we just focus on the climate changes. So Europe is harmed heavily by the drought this year, and they lost a lot of their crops. If I don't want to talk about the war itself, okay, but I have to talk about the sanctions,
Yes.
which is affecting us. So at the end, we have to look for lifting the sanctions. This is our aim. The war, we are not talking about the war because it's a political issue and nobody knows how it will end. But our aim to lift all the sanctions,
Yes.
which was the reason of the war. And the sanctions is affecting everybody. So we have seen that if Europe prohibited all the shipping lines to serve in the Black Sea, according to the sanctions, so we are damaged because we import a lot of wheat, we import a lot of cereals from Russia and Ukraine. So there is no shipping lines are serving. So only remaining one or two shipping lines are serving, so they are increasing their freights. On the other sides, we are also exporting, so at the end the cost is higher according to the high freights. And this is hard for the people, for the people of the countries. It's not for the economy of the countries are suffering, but the people are suffering more and more.
Yes.
That's why we always say that here in Egypt we feel higher cost and higher prices of the food, and this is because of the inflation is not only one side. It's not only because the prices of the food is high. No, they started to decrease. But what happened? We have increase of the freights, we have increase of the logistic costs, we have also a lack of foreign currency to try to release some of the goods. So there was a storage cost in the ports and so on, and this all, and there is a devaluation for the currency. So you have four sides of inflation for the prices of the food in Egypt.
Yes.
We are trying to solve now one by one. And but if we produce more, of course, it will decrease the pressure.
Yes.
So that's why I have to talk about the mega projects. It's going very well. Egypt is on the plan to reduce the gap in several items, such as the wheat. So by 2025, we are going to achieve 65% of our supply and demand ratio,
yes.
which will decrease a lot of our imports.
Most definitely.
This is only one item.
Yes. Well, we are aiming to do that by 2025, and for the fiscal budget of 2024-2025, Egypt is actually increasing its green and smart investments up to 50%. Let's check out this report and we'll be right back.
The government aims to increase the percentage of green public investments from 15% in the current fiscal year 2021-2022 to 30% in the new budget for 2022-23 and up to 50% in the 2024-2025 fiscal year. This is a presidential mandate to expand green and sustainable financing in the coming years in a way that contributes to achieving development goals with environmentally friendly projects in cooperation with development partners from the private sector, in line with the country's regional efforts to combat climate change. The government is keen to diversify sources of financing investment projects between dollar, green bonds and euro bonds and move forward towards issuing sovereign bonds, which contributes to reducing costs of financing comprehensive and sustainable development, hence the sustainability of the public finance indicators, in order to preserve the economic gains that have been achieved. Recently, the Cabinet approved during its weekly meeting in the new administrative capital the Economic and Social Development Plan for the fiscal year 2023-24. The plan aims at achieving goals of human development, which are considered the main pillar of economic growth and social progress. This according to the Minister of Planning and Economic Development, Hala Said, who said the new plan focuses on projects whose implementation rate has already exceeded 70% and on providing necessary investments for their fulfillment. She emphasized the importance of supporting the Decent Life presidential initiative, which aims at developing Egypt's rural areas whilst bridging the development gaps and carrying out investment projects in impoverished villages. She added that the plan for the education sector includes 1,051 projects that take into consideration population growth and growing development needs. Speaking of the health sector, Said said the plan includes 657 projects which will be carried out to develop hospitals and ambulance services. Regarding the youth, she said the plan will include 339 projects aimed at expanding youth and sports services.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, continuing our discussion with Engineer Naggari. Now, obviously, since late last year, everybody's been talking about the COP27, and a huge spotlight was shed on climate change and climate action. And Egypt has taken it upon itself to really spearhead the whole action plan for combating climate change, not just for Egypt, but for the whole of Africa. Now, if we are talking about increasing 50% of our budget allocated for green and smart projects, especially for the year 2024-2025, how will this affect the environmental effects and boosting an environmental industry, really, the agricultural and irrigation file, especially with all the mega national projects that you've mentioned?
Let me tell you that when we say COP27, that means that the G20 or the global, they have met together 26 times before.
Yes.
Okay, so it's a long
process.
Meetings and process at the end. But if we can say that the Glasgow meeting just before our Sharm el-Sheikh summit and Sharm el-Sheikh summit was really, if we can say that it was a crucial movement in the climate change issue as a general. So at the end of the day, they have to talk clearly that Africa as a continent is the least in producing carbon,
yes,
and they are the highest affected. And in Europe or the developed countries, they are producing a lot of carbon, and they are happy. They are not. They don't have too much problems. They are trying to set always agreements for the sake of their sites.
Yes.
So they have signed an agreement which is called Green Agreement in 2019, which is leading for zero carbon by 2050. And it have decades, 10, from
Yes.
to 20 to 30, 40, 50. And according to that, your movement and your dealing with the power have to change. The source of power have to change. And that's why Egypt was on the same step, and we are talking about the renewable energy. We are trying to promote for that. We are trying to finance for the factories or for the farmers or whatever to try to move on this way. Because at the end, you will not be able to export to the developed countries if you are not in comply with the terms and the agreements of the Green Agreement or with the needs to reduce the carbon emissions. So at the end, we are in this way. But also on the other side, Europe and the US and Australia and Canada are damaged by the high prices of the power at the moment. Extremely high for them, and extremely high for a sector like the agriculture. That's why they are losing their competitiveness, if we can say, and Egypt is getting more and more chances to export. That's why we are increasing our export. What we are saying is to try to increase the value of the unit and to try to benefit from each square meter, cubic meter of water. This is what we are always trying to discuss with our government, how to increase our productivity. The quality is an issue. The quality itself is an issue, and you have to pay a lot. It costs a lot to get quality. Covering the needs of the fertilizers also, because it needs power. But Egypt, thanks God, is improving a lot. We are always in discussion about increasing the productivity of the TSP or the DEP or the NPK, all the types of fertilizers which the agriculture needs. Thanks God also for the government that they are trying to attract the farmers by crop agreements with higher value, especially for wheat and also for the beet root and for the sunflower and for the soya. We have seen that they are trying to attract them by prices which more or less would be attractive for the farmer to produce and to deliver their products. So at the end we can try to decrease the demand on the animal feed, which was a problem or still a problem at the moment.
Well, sir, now you've highlighted the difficulties that maybe the agricultural and irrigation sector is facing, but you also highlighted the difficulties the foreign investors or the foreign farmers are facing in terms of a difference in energy prices, in many things. Now, you've always were of the view that we are facing difficulties and problems and challenges, but also you see a lot of opportunities,
of course,
to break through and counterbalance.
I'm very optimistic.
Yes.
I'm very
so please,
optimistic.
can you shed light on the sort of the opportunities that maybe a lot of people don't really see that are available right now to countermeasure all the obstacles and challenges?
We, as we always say that when we learned it before, when we were kids, we used to say that Egypt have a very nice weather and we are very well located in the world. And this is correct. We are in the center of the world. We are center in the trade routes. That's why you mentioned that the Suez Canal is, the revenues are increasing because the world started to move. And of course, this will be a mirror for us. If we see that the Suez Canal revenues are higher, that means that trade from south to north or from north to south or east to west is increasing. So that's why we always have to say that we are all optimistic. It's only when we say that we are discussing with the government is for the sake of the country, for the sake of our potential, which we feel that we have it really. Okay, we have challenges, but this is always a chances. Always the chances come from the challenges. So investors are always there. So try to attract them. It's not hard. If we put ourselves in their thoughts, how they want to protect themselves, how they want to be working in a stable environment, we do hope that our currency will be stable. So at the end, this will not be an obstacle for investors to come. But they are, of course, focusing on Egypt, I'm sure.
Definitely. Ladies and gentlemen, on this optimistic note, we understand that there are a lot of challenges, obstacles, but as Engineer Naggari has mentioned, a lot of efforts, a lot of measures, a lot of opportunities by the private sector and the national initiatives and the government are all trying to work on boosting smart green projects, especially within the agricultural and irrigation systems and field. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Debate. But before we go, I'd like to thank my very distinguished guest, Engineer Mostafa Naggari, the chairman of the Agricultural and Irrigation Committee in the Egyptian Businessmen Association, and also deputy chairman of the Egyptian Exports Association, Expo Link. Engineer Naggari, was a pleasure having you with us. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned